Excellent. So welcome. My name is Rachel McGill. I am the Healthcare Workforce Liaison for JMG. My position is a collaborative partnership between JMG and MaineHealth. And the goal is to really increase awareness to training programs and career opportunities that MaineHealth offers so that students are aware of these as they're making pivotal decisions about their career and next steps, either after high school or during college. So I'm just going to go through a couple housekeeping items before we get started. If you have questions that pop up throughout the webinar, please feel free to type those into the Q&A section. If it makes sense and it's a relevant follow-up, I may have time to ask our panelists to respond. But if not, I'll address those towards the end because I've left a couple minutes for a recap. I do want to introduce Sharon Moore. Sharon, if you can give a wave. She is my lovely co-host helping me. Sharon is the North Regional Workforce Liaison for JMG. Folks, I know we have some educators who registered for their entire class today and we're being projected live into your rooms. If you could chat Sharon the number of participants who are sitting watching the webinar, it would really help us just to know what those numbers are. I greatly appreciate it. And then at the end of this webinar, there's a brief survey that will pop up on your screen. It's 3 questions, but it greatly helps us to get your feedback as we consider future programming. So if you have time, thank you in advance for kind of responding to those questions. Okay, so our topic today is behavioral health, which is vast in its discipline, but we're very fortunate today to have 2 representatives from MaineHealth here to talk about their specific roles. And the first person we're going to speak to is Carrie Breton. She is a registered nurse too, and she works at Spring Harbor Hospital. All right, so Carrie, we're going to start with you. Can you talk about your individual career path? And if you could talk about how did you get into this current role? And did you always know you wanted to work in healthcare?
Yes. So first I'd say that nursing in general is definitely a calling. You know, you feel drawn to do it. And I think mental health nursing, psychiatric nursing is a special kind of nursing and a great kind of like kept secret in nursing. It's a wonderful career. I was always been in healthcare my whole adult life. I was a CNA and a polarity therapist before I decided to go and get my bachelor's degree in nursing. I went to USM, and as part of getting your nursing degree, you do clinicals. And when we did our first clinical at Spring Harbor Hospital, where I work now in mental health, it was just like, wow, it was obvious, like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm meant to do. And then you get to do your practicum or your internship, and you get to spend, you know, months working in the specialty that you're interested in. And I did that. I worked as a student before you actually graduate, the last thing before you graduate, one-on-one with a nurse, and discovered that this is absolutely perfect for me. And so that's what I did. And I've been a nurse at Spring Harbor Hospital since 2008.
Wow, so long
Yes.
time. Wonderful, thank you. I think folks will be curious to know what a day in the life looks like for you. So in your current role, could you walk us through things like who you interact with, the kind of tasks that you perform? That would just be helpful to kind of paint the picture.
So Spring Harbor Hospital is for acute mental health. I work with adults. It's different in the sense where patients in another type of hospital are often, you find them are always in their rooms, always in their beds. At Spring Harbor, the patients are up and mobile and moving around and interacting with us and each other in a very dynamic way. The patients there, it's a locked unit. So, and that's important there because you can't be admitted to this hospital unless you're a danger to yourself or others. And some of the patients are there involuntarily, meaning they, even as adults, they're not free to leave. And that's a pretty big deal. So creating an environment that is therapeutic all the same, even when people may not want to be there, is challenging, but rewarding. And we work as a team. There's the nurses and psych techs is what they're called, psychiatric techs, but we just say psych tech, and social workers, and of course the doctors and PAs and NPs. We all work together as a team to help the patients get better, and they really do get better. So that's a great thing. I guess I have a little, to give an example. So as part of our day, I think as most nurses, we give out, of course, medication. That's, what we are, but above and beyond that, in psychiatric nursing, we're helping people emotionally in a holistic way. And one of the greatest things about my job is doing that more creative type work. For example, I lead a music group. And the idea is learning to be in the present moment and just listen to the music and feel better. And so in a group like that, we have such a range of patients. There'll be someone that's really, really struggling, like with psychosis and maybe hearing things and seeing things that aren't there. But then we'll have another patient that's really high functioning and, successful in the community, but is going through an extremely hard time and is maybe actively suicidal. And then we may have a patient that's manic and, thinking very paranoid and having a hard time that way. Then we can have someone that's going through substance abuse issues and detoxing and wanting to find a sober lifestyle. So we have all these different spectrum of patients, and to create a group that works for everyone is challenging, but it's so rewarding because, like, for example, with my music group, I can play a song that kind of like unifies everyone. So I'll play a song like maybe the Beatles, like Let It Be. And it's just so beautiful to see everyone, start singing along and their spirits lift and sort of forget everything else for a little while that they're going through and just be happy in that moment. And that's a great part of the day of my job.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I'm changing just because you mentioned a psych tech position. And this was not a question I gave you, so I am sorry about that, but I know that our audience is probably going to ask, what is the difference between what a psych tech does and what you do as a nurse?
So a psych tech doesn't have any specific education in healthcare or mental health, and they get extensive training when they get the job. So you can, if you are interested in working in the mental health field, and a psych tech position is a great opportunity for someone to try to see if they like it and see what it's like. And we're always in need of those positions. and like I said, they have like extensive training in the beginning about how to help people behaviorally that are having like a crisis behaviorally, physically, restraining, all sorts of stuff to help you feel comfortable in your role. And then, of course, training on the job as well. But there's like a good, I think, 2 weeks that you're before you even get on the floor and start working that you get training. And so a
Right.
nurse on the other hand is a registered nurse, has a bachelor's degree in nursing.
That actually leads kind of to the next question that I asked you is, what are the opportunities within your department? And we've heard that there's been staffing shortages across healthcare disciplines. Um, are you having the same thing within your area, shortages, and what types of positions do you need?
Um, right now, it seems like there's a job shortage everywhere in the world, from where you get your coffee, even. So yes, we're always hiring and looking for positions, people that are interested in this field. And I think there's a sort of stigma in mental health, unfortunately. And so it's hard to find people that are a good fit, that feel comfortable in this environment. So if someone feels like they'd be comfortable in this environment, then please come help, because we do need the help. And I think that I actually love the work and find it, very enjoyable, and other people may find that too. So I would highly encourage people to look into this field. I'd also say that, working in other parts of healthcare where I've worked, we had a lot more trouble keeping it filled. People stay at Spring Harbor, I think. And we often, we can move around, and with teamwork, we very rarely work shorthanded. We usually, I feel like we have enough staff to take good care of the patients, and I don't feel, overworked or whatever. I feel like it's a safe environment to work in.
You keep leading me right along to the next questions, which is great. So you touched on this a little bit, but what kinds of interests or skills might make someone a good fit to work in that role?
I would definitely say, like I was referring to before, a sort of non-judgmental mindset, like see the best in people, work with that. If you're able to look at someone and look past maybe what they've done, some of the troubles they have, and just see them as another human being without that judgment, that allows you to be compassionate and have empathy for that person and meet them where they're at. And that's the biggest skills you can have to help people that are struggling with their mental health. I think if you're able to talk with people honestly, just be able to speak and honestly with people, that's what the patients like best, when you're able to just be yourself and speak truthfully and honestly with them. I think that makes a big difference. I also think that if you're able to understand that helping people is truly a privilege, it gives your life meaning. And I think that it makes my life wonderful to know that I have that ability to help people, and that, I have a reason to get up every day because I'm helping people. I'm making a difference. Yes.
Thank you. So we do have a lot of high school students on the call now who are trying to decide what their next steps are. Are there things that a high school student can do now who might be interested in exploring areas of behavioral health?
Well, you could, I mean, like I said before, you could look into being a psych tech. I think that you need to get your college, I mean, not college, but your high school diploma to be a psych tech. I think you'd be more comfortable that way too, but definitely after graduation, you could look into being a psych tech. And there's, of course, online now, there's everything that you can look into the different diagnoses. I would definitely look into what are the different mental health diagnoses and what are their symptoms and what helps to manage those symptoms and communication and how to best communicate with people who are struggling. I find it so interesting. So, I mean, if you find it interesting and you're still in high school, just looking into it yourself, there's so much out there. Mental health seems to be, a big topic these days. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of the last question I want to end with, and you've answered part of it, I'm sure, in your other responses because it comes through when you're talking. But what do you like best about your job, and maybe what is something that's challenging for you in your current role?
Definitely the most challenging part of the job is what I would refer to the fact of involuntary patients. So, I mean, you imagine that you're going about your life and you think you're doing okay, but in reality, the choices you're making are very, very unsafe. But you don't see it that way. And now suddenly you find yourself on this locked hospital ward and there's so many restrictions. You're not, of course, allowed your phone. You're not even allowed your own toothbrush. So here you are in this situation where as an adult on the world and you're now here against your will. So it's very challenging to help some of these people be comfortable, and they're scared, and that comes out as anger a lot of times. And so you have to have a tough skin, and you have to learn to find a good rapport with these patients, that you're working with them as a team, that you're trying to make them comfortable and help them get through this hard time. You're not their jail warden, which is sometimes how they can see you. And so you have to move past that. And so that's a very challenging part. And there can be times where people are physically aggressive to others and to themselves. And it's not all the time. It really, really isn't. It's just now and then. And that is the only time we would have to put our hands on people, if they were actively trying to hurt themselves or someone else. You can get angry, you can yell, you can swear, you can do bang things, and we're not going to, we're going to try to help you create a safe environment for you to let that out, not put our hands on you. But those times when we have to put our hands on, and then even what's called a psychiatric emergency, where the doctors will insist that you take medication. And at that time, medication is sometimes the only thing that will help someone who's that ill. And it's hard as a nurse to say, I'm sorry, but you've lost your right not to take this medication. You have to. That's the hardest part. That said, on a day-to-day basis, that is not my job. On a day-to-day basis, I'm working with people on a very personal level to become healthy again, be more themselves, remind them of who they are when they are healthy, and get back to it. And I honestly, because of the type of mental health, that happens every day. Every day I go home and I can make a list of ways in which I helped somebody and made a difference. And that's pretty huge to be able to do that. And, so if you have that, some of these people have on their everyday life, no one's ever kind to them. And so if I can just be kind to someone, that makes a big difference to them, to be able to be kind to them, show them some respect. And that makes a big difference every day in their lives. And that's my favorite part of the job. That's it.
Thank you so much. very clear that you're doing the work that you are meant to do and how much you love what you do. So thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Um, at this point, we're going to turn over to our second panelist today, and that's Sammy Jo Stubbs, and she is a clinical social worker. So we are excited to kind of hear her experience as well. Sammy Jo, thanks for joining us. We're going to ask the same question. So could you talk about your individual career path? How did you get into your current role, and what did you always know you wanted to work in healthcare?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for being here and hearing us out. So my career path took a couple of turns before I landed in clinical social work. I was someone who was highly involved in sciences in high school. And so I think I always knew I wanted to do some form of healthcare. After graduating from high school, I did attend nursing school, and I did a couple years, and the college that I chose wasn't a great fit for me. So I eventually transitioned to an alternative school. Unfortunately, I wasn't immediately able to matriculate into their nursing program, so I spent some time focused on a biology degree. And then I had a traumatic event occur in my life. And it was during this transition, it connected me with several social workers and victim advocates that really led me to what I want to do, because it felt so good to have their support and their connection during a really challenging time in my life. So I completed my bachelor's degree in social work in 2016. Then I went for my master's degree and earned that in 2018. I've held several roles in the social work realm. Currently, I'm a clinical social worker at Spring Harbor, working with youth diagnosed with autism and intellectual disabilities. And then I also run a small private practice where I meet with adults seeking treatment for mental health.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for kind of sharing that journey. I think it's really nice for our students to hear that not all paths are linear. So thank you for sharing. I think there's a lot of interest in social work, specifically clinical social work from our students that I've been seeing. So could you really talk about what a day in the life looks like for you? What services do you perform? What environment are you in? I know you said Spring Harbor Hospital. And who do you interact with most on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So the thing with clinical social work is that one role is never going to be the same as another role. So I can speak very confidently about the current role that I'm in, but please know that there's such an open door for clinical social work. So in my current role at Spring Harbor, I am the point of contact for families whose child has been admitted to our unit. I facilitate network meetings, which allow the parents, the community providers, the treatment team here at the hospital to discuss progress and to discuss discharge planning needs. I coordinate services based on the treatment team's recommendations and based on what parents and the families need for support. I interact daily with nurses, behavior techs, doctors, psychologists, behavioral analysts, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists. It's quite a big multidisciplinary team, and I talk to them all.
That's great. That's really good to know that you get exposure and kind of working with all those different areas and to support obviously your patients. That's wonderful. Are you seeing staffing shortages? I mean, I know we said kind of across the board this is a thing, but what does that look like for your current department or your role? Are you actively searching for more positions right now?
Yeah, we tend to kind of always have an open position in the social work department. But kind of in general, social workers, nurses, behavior techs, ed techs, they're needed. They're certainly needed. Yeah. I think, I think behavioral health care, mental health care, we have a high rate of turnover, just because of the demand of the job. And so, some folks are career techs here, and some people use the tech level position as a stepping stone into their next placement.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to know that there is that kind of career ladder and encouragement to have kind of the career advancement and go on for more training and more school, which is kind of across the board at MaineHealth I've seen so far. What kinds of interests or skills, what might make someone a good fit to be a clinical social worker? Are there things that you can identify?
Yeah, I think just from my own experience, I think an ideal candidate for a clinical social worker would include a high degree of curiosity for human behavior. So really wanting to understand why people do the things that they do, and also having an ability to differentiate between your own stuff, right? Our own biases, and differentiating between that and a person's right to self-determination. So a person's right to choose, even if it's a choice that we would never choose for ourselves or for our loved ones, folks do get that choice to choose. And also, and I can't really stress this enough, but a willingness to adopt a really high level routine for self-care. I talked about burnout and high rates of turnover, and self-care is a must in this field.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And it really does echo a little bit of what Carrie was saying too, in that kind of leave some of those preconceptions or preconceived notions on the side as you're engaging every day. So that's really helpful. Are there things that a high school student or a college student who's kind of interested in this path do right now if they're interested in exploring this area?
Yeah, I think what you could do now as a high school student, volunteering in your community. This offers a lot of ability for you to see other paths of life, begin kind of talking with people about their, how they got into the field that they're in, and just, begin to build your resume to reflect your community service and your willingness to engage with other people. And then I think in addition to, what Carrie was saying about a psych tech position, there's also a behavioral health professional certification, which would allow you to do the work in the community. So oftentimes you're in a home working with a child, or, you're working in a program. And so that you just need to be 18 and have your high school diploma or GED. And this is a great way to open the door to the field, and BHPs are in high demand. You could also talk with your school guidance counselor or school social worker to understand how they got to be where they're at, and see what opportunities sound good for you.
Yeah, that's great advice, utilizing your current network, but also I think you both gave positions to kind of look into and research as kind of entry points for that career ladder that we just talked about. So that's great. And then I'll ask you the last question I asked Carrie. What do you like best about your job? And then maybe what is the most challenging part that you deal with?
Yeah. So I think in this role at the hospital, we'll start with the most challenging. The most challenging part is the availability of community resources for patients who really need ongoing support at home, or just in their general communities. The pandemic was really a catalyst to an already struggling system. And so there's just really a great need for community-based social workers, BHPs, and case managers. So referrals are the most challenging part of my job. What I like best about my job is honestly the same reason that drove me to the career, which is to have, and I'm going to use what Carrie said, it's a privilege. So really to have the privilege to sit with somebody in their worst moments. I love being able to just be a gentle support while also encouraging folks to stretch outside their comfort zones, do something different. I like being able to see a child come onto our unit, watch their progress, work with the family to move towards different ways of engaging with their child, and then seeing a more stable child and family system at point of discharge. Those things are really enjoyable to see, make it worth it.
Oh, thank you so much. I can't believe we're at time already, folks, but we are actually at 1:30, and I don't see any questions that came into the Q&A. So at this point, I just want to say thank you to Sammy, Joe, and Carrie for sharing their experiences with us. And I think just having that level of service mindset seems to be a really good starting place if you're interested in behavioral health. So I think you've given our students wonderful things to think about. And I'll just say thank you again for talking with us today.
Great.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day, everybody.
Everyone. Bye.